if you're trying to become a good communicator, a good persuader, or a good negotiator, there is one skill that you need to develop that every single communicator who's considered as a good or an exceptional communicator has developed, which is the skill of confidence in your skin. If you want to be a good communicator, you need to be confident in the way you look, in the way you talk, because if you're not, it's going to be really hard to communicate with people. You're going to start developing this anxiety or stress when it comes to conversations, where it comes to communication settings, because you're not that confident that you will know what to say, right? Something that I usually encounter that people always say, they run out of things to say. They don't really know how to keep the conversation flowing smoothly, and that's understandable. But then you know that you can use the intentional repetition method to fill in the void of this awkward conversation and keep the conversation flowing, to keep, building that rapport and keep the conversation engaged, and to keep the conversation engaging. Because when you do that, then you're actually communicating with somebody. You're not just standing there thinking about communicating with them and overthinking about it and stressing about it, and you don't end up actually doing it, right? So this is a very thin line there between a good communicator and somebody who's not as good, is that somebody who's considered a good communicator is somebody who speaks confidently. If there's somebody who stands in front of you and they just speak very confidently, even if they're not that great at using their body language, or they're not that great at using their tonality or their pausing, whatever, they're just really confident. You feel like, okay, this person is really confident in their own skin and they're talking really confidently, I want to listen to them. And opposed to somebody who's really just scared and just trying to tell something as if it's the end of the world, you feel like even if they're using tonality and maybe they're crying, right, they're using their body language, you just feel like the energy is not there. You don't really want to have a conversation with that person. And same thing applies to you, right? You want to be open yourself for that. When people want to talk to you, it's easier to approach you and vice versa. Another thing to keep in mind is that all good communicators are also really imaginative and very creative people. Because at the end of the day, you need to create a conversation some way, somehow. Sometimes you need to get creative in the way you communicate with people for you to ensure that whatever conversation you had is actually going to leave a mark, right? And the way we envision ourselves kind of ties to the idea of confidence, but the vision we have of ourselves as communicators plays a big predicament and role in how the conversations go and how our communication skills get developed. Because if in your mind you have this belief that you're not a good speaker, that when you talk to people they don't listen, that you don't have the assertiveness that you need to be able to be in a room and say something and be actually heard, these beliefs are going to limit the opportunities in which you actually engage in conversations. Just because you will get stressed, you will get anxious about getting in those conversation scenarios to begin with, that you try to avoid them. And when you do that, you don't practice. When you don't practice, your communication skills start going backward and you start losing it. So what you need to do instead is that you need to be confident first. Second, have an optimistic vision of yourself as a communicator. Start changing your beliefs about communication. It's not really hard to talk to people. If you go talk to a stranger, they're not going to slap you in the face. If they don't want to talk, you're just not gonna respond maybe. Or they're just gonna say, hey, sorry, I'm busy. That's the worst case scenario. And if you can handle the worst case scenario, which you should, because even when it happens, it's building your character. You're getting used to rejection. But when this happens, what you're doing is that you're putting in the work. You're developing your communication skills. Even if somebody didn't want to talk, the next person will, right? And that's what I need. We need increments to move step by step to become better communicators. Because nobody's just going to wake up one day and be the next Tony Robbins. Because nobody's just going to wake up one day and just be brilliant communicators. It doesn't work that way. The skills will get developed as you go. Okay? That's it for this video, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.